veteran players were designated for assignment in the final week of the regular season. On the surface, not a big deal. Beneath the surface, oh my goodness. Good morning to you. What is it, Wednesday? Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way, I think, Monday through Friday, bright and early in the morning. If you're into football and hockey, either of which would come highly recommended right about now, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Rowdy Tellez and Michael A. Taylor were the two DFA guys. In Taylor's case, he'd been placed on waivers before. They've tried to move him, tried to save a few bucks on a contract that was one of Ben Cherington's many off-season busts. So that one wasn't going to move the needle much. Tellez is different, not because he was great either. Had himself a nice little spurt that basically saved his big league career, but otherwise performed miles below what, say, for example, Carlos Santana did, after Santana had spent the previous few months pretty much begging the Pirates to bring him back. But what had the Tellez thing take off was that it became known that Tellez was about to get a $200,000 bonus if he'd accrue an additional 4 plate appearances. So somehow, magically, coincidentally, the team decided that, this would be the day that Tellez could actually get 4 plate appearances, in one game before the 7-2 loss to the Brewers that fittingly followed this mess. And that's when he was DFA'd, not when he was completely destroying this lineup early in the season. Not a week ago, most certainly not tomorrow, after which he could have had those 4 plate appearances. So, this breaks, gets all over social media. Everybody blames Bob Nutting. Turns out, I'm told Nutting had nothing to do with this, and that actually makes a lot of sense. Owners aren't generally informed of DFAs. And if you think Nutting's being informed of DFAs, then you forever forfeit your card to accuse him of being aloof or disinterested or whatever. I mean, DFAs, you got to be pretty into it. So it was Cherington who did it. And I also was told that. And even more tellingly, the afternoon at PNC Park was so awkward that Derek Shelton's press conference was pushed back not once, not twice, but even after the second time, an additional 40 minutes went into a delay. Why? Well, I can only guess at this, and it is just a guess, but here's betting that Shelton didn't exactly feel obligated to face the reporters on hand and explain something that he definitely would have had nothing to do with. So what ends up happening? Cherington gets summoned, and this I know. And Cherington gets told, you're going to go and explain this. Parentheses, no, the summoning was not from Nutting. End parentheses. So when Cherington's standing there and he's asked the obvious glaring question as to whether or not money might have played some part in his decision, this was the answer that he gave. And this is it in its entirety.
No factor at all. Zero factor in the decision. Aware of it, certainly. I'm aware of the contracts that all players have. No factor at all. Zero. And no, I'm not concerned. If you're asking about optics going forward and how it affects business and things like that, no. Contracts are negotiated in good faith, and then they live out, and we feel like we gave Rowdy lots of opportunity here this year, and he, to his credit, he fought through some difficult times earlier in the year and fought himself out of it, and had periods of success and periods of frustration, and this is just where we got to the season.
I mean, do you want me to break that down? Do you need me to break that down? All you have to do is stand there and say, listen, money plays a part in all of our decisions. The guy was terrible, Rowdy, early in the season. By all rights, we should have DFA'd him in May. And if we had, he wouldn't have been eligible for any of these bonuses. If he wanted to be collecting bonuses, he should have been a better ball player. Oh, and also, we wanted to take a look at a couple of minor leaguers in the final week. It's not something unusual. It's done around Major League Baseball. And you want to know something? There's at least a smattering of people around here who would have at least applauded the honesty, who would have at least said, I can buy that. I mean, if the guy was no good, I don't see why he should have been collecting another $250,000. But that's not how Cherington rolls. That's not how any of these guys roll. And if you want to know what's the word I'm looking for here? The underpinning for how I feel about this, it's got nothing to do with the $200,000, nothing to do with Tellez, nothing to do with how it was butchered on the scene. It has everything to do with the fact that these guys, led by Cherington, head of baseball operations, might be the most non-Pittsburgh people you've ever seen associated with a Pittsburgh sports franchise, at least in my lifetime. And understand what I mean when I say that. I don't mean that everybody has to be from Pittsburgh or wherever. Roberto Clemente wasn't from Pittsburgh. Mean Joe Green wasn't from Pittsburgh. The greatest athlete we've ever seen around here, Mario Lemieux, wasn't from Pittsburgh. But they fit Pittsburgh. They became Pittsburgh. They communicated. And that's been true to some extent or another of not all, but most of the coaches, managers, executives. They come here and they get it. They don't lock themselves in an office, surround themselves with a bunch of other New England snobs, and convince themselves that they're geniuses and everybody outside their four walls are idiots. Because that's how they conduct themselves. That's how Cherington conducts himself. To go out there and stand there and tell everyone with a straight face that money played no part in it, while also acknowledging that he was aware of the contract and the bonus. Honestly, just clean house. Get rid of these people. When we come back, there might or might not be a J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
And you know what? There won't be a J1Q. I got everybody sent pretty much the same question / rant / angry story about how they're canceling their season tickets and so forth. With respect to that emotion, and I know it's real. You know who I think of when stuff like this happens? I think of the players and the people who've come before, who still care about the franchise. I think about the great Bill Mazeroski, now in his 80s, telling me in Bradenton not so long ago that he'd love to see the Pirates win it one more time. He'd love to see that happen. I think about the 1971 battery of Steve Blass and Manny Sanguillen, still such a big part of the Pittsburgh Baseball Club, all these years after mowing down the Orioles in Game 7. I think about Kent Tekulve and Omar Moreno. Teak threw the last pitch that mattered in this franchise's history. Omar caught the last out that mattered in this franchise's history. I think about the players that won the 3 straight division titles in the early 90s. I think about a lot of the players that came after that, especially guys that I covered, guys who were proud to wear the uniform even if the team wasn't as successful as they'd hoped it be, as they tried to make it be. Heck, I think of the current guys. I think about Andrew McCutchen and the wonderful return that he's had to Pittsburgh, and how he's topped 20-plus home runs at age 37 this season in a virtual vacuum, because these guys somehow managed to turn PNC Park into a graveyard almost overnight. A graveyard again almost overnight. I think about Paul Skeens. Think about Skeens playing in front of sellout crowds. People were scooping up tickets like he was Taylor Swift or something. They were traveling long distances to see him. And there he was just a few days ago, pitching in front of about 5,000 people. Still the same kid, still the same pitcher. What changed? Oh, right. The people running the franchise ran it into the ground again. Remember earlier this month when Cherington seized upon that opportunity with the Marlins in town, knowing that the Pirates might actually win a couple of games, to announce that, quote, I fully expect, end quote, Derek Shelton to be back in 2025. You might also recall my reaction to that utterly baseless statement coming from someone who himself shouldn't be back. Well, buckle up. You can't change the owner. That's why I don't waste your time or mine talking about it. There's just no point. But you can at least change baseball ops and hope for the best. With this current stuff going on, with what Cherington and his people have done over 5 years, there is no hope. None. Again, buckle up.